maintenance director for the administration, for the school district, would have those reports, and in fact, those air quality reports have been done. Great. He's on vacation. So I followed up with the Board of Health.
Yep.
Roz is amazing. Cannot say enough
Thank you. It's
wonderful
good to know.
things about her. The town of Dayton is lucky to have her.
Yes.
However, there's only so much she can do. She informed me that the chairperson, as well as some members of the Board of Health, do have the reports, but they need to review them before I can get a copy.
Okay. I can tell you well, Mallory can tell you what's going on a little bit.
What I know is that the building inspector has those reports, and he did share them with the Board of Health. They've reviewed them, and we do have a meeting scheduled with Dr. Azar tomorrow afternoon. I believe it is the health agent, but it might also be the Board of Health chairman, but I think it's just the health agent, the building inspector, and myself. I believe Mr. Nappy will be in attendance as well. So that's tomorrow afternoon, and we intend to bring our concerns, which I believe we share similar concerns, to him, and basically get answers as to what the course of action is.
So is that not public? Like those reports, I can't get a copy of, just as a taxpayer in town. Have they been done? When were they done? All of that information is not right at our access now?
It is at our access now. The building inspector has a copy of those. I myself haven't reviewed them.
Okay.
I'm basically at the mercy of the building inspector to translate those types of things for
Okay.
me. But if you want to leave your information with me, I'll make sure I get a
I guess
copy.
it's just frustrating because I
I
have left my
understand.
information with the school district, as well as Dave Nappy, as well as, like I said.
Oh, and
I've
Roz
emailed-
would have
And
yours.
Roz has my
Okay.
contact information too,
So I will take these to the appropriate people that have the
Now-
reports, and then after our meeting, you can also get a summary of our meeting, which I think would be
Yeah,
helpful.
great. So then we'll obviously know more after that meeting of what
That's the
direction
hope,
we're
yeah.
going
Mhm.
in.
And the steps to be taken now that we've identified that this problem exists
Problem.
and that there will be a new roof, so while we're in there, what are they
Okay,
gonna do about it?
so-
Yep, absolutely.
Who should I contact going forward then?
I think the Board of Health is the best bet
Yeah.
because they handle mold. I mean, that's their jurisdiction.
And all the testing in all of the schools? Those reports go directly to the Board of Health once they're done?
I cannot answer that with certainty,
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I'll ask that question.
I
I'll ask
actually
that for
have
you.
another question.
I also, while I'm here, I'm gonna continue to fire off
Well-
questions.
Do you mind if I ask a question
Yeah, go right
first?
ahead.
And I apologize
No.
to interrupt you, Ms. Quinn. I'm just curious to know why the Board of Health, and maybe it's not a public document, I really don't know what guidelines the school district has to adhere to, if they're the same as like the Board of Selectmen, for example. But I'm a little bit confused as to why they needed to be reviewed before any information could be shared, because shouldn't they be getting the documents right as they're produced? Like, they should already have been reviewed.
I think I can
We
answer
shouldn't be
that.
looking at that for the first time.
I think there's been confusion. I remember when you were here a while ago.
I was
And
here
asking
when
for the
we
same
had,
thing.
and Dr. Azar told me in that meeting, which
Yep,
is
I remember. Yep,
taped,
yep.
that those reports exist, and to follow up with his business manager, which I have,
Did?
So I
who
think,
passed it off to Nappy, who's on vacation, and who I was told by her to give him a couple days to get back to me. Well, we're on day 5 now, and this meeting was back in November. So
I think,
as a parent, I'm just concerned. I
I-
wanna know what the answers are, I wanna know what the bottom line is, I wanna know going forward how to file a complaint. Because if it hasn't been done properly and inspections haven't been followed up on, that's alarming to me. I mean, if
Yeah.
you had it in your house, you would not let your child go to sleep every night. These kids are in classrooms breathing in, we don't know what.
I'd also
we share
like,
we share your concern, believe me. And I think what I'm seeing is, it's not been an organized process. Is that fair to say?
Well,
In the board, where
I
does
think you're being
up to the-
generous.
Okay. But
Honestly.
and the Board of Health had not been involved in it, and I think now they will be. Is that,
so
Well,
that's
but
how
I-
I feel, and what I would say to you, if I were in your shoes, I'm a parent myself. The governing body over the school is a school committee. So I would complain to the superintendent, continue that, CC the school committee, and CC the Board of Health.
So this
And
meeting tomorrow is just closed doors with Board of Health,
It's not
Town
the
of
Board,
Dayton? the school, it's not open to parents?
It's not a board meeting
Yeah.
like this. It's not subject to open meeting law. It's myself, the building inspector, the health agent, and potentially, I'm just not sure if the
Okay.
chairman of the Board of Health is going to be there. And then I believe, I was told it was Dave Nappy was going to be there, and then the superintendent. The big great unknown was whether or not the roof was gonna get passed in Rehoboth. Now we know that, and we can formulate an actual plan of what's gonna, how we're gonna tackle this problem. But I share your concerns. I think it's very upsetting that
And,
this is,
it's a great
gone on.
thing now that they're gonna do it, but my only concern is still, what is living in the ceilings and the walls?
well, exactly,
Every
and I'm
time
not
even
sure
Dayton
why you
Elementary
were,
School has been exposed to water or leaks, has the proper remediation been done at that moment? Or are we just wet vacuuming? What is the process? I'm just trying to get some solid answers around, how to file a complaint or a concern, and what's the feedback after that?
Okay, Selectman
You know.
Goulart?
I have seen the reports, I've scanned them, I have not read them and studied them in depth, I have not discussed them with the building commissioner. I'm not pointing fingers at the school department or anybody else, but my understanding is the tests that we now have that's been referred to, I believe were ordered by the Town of Dayton Board of Health. The Town of Dayton Board of Health, quite frankly, is addressing this problem. Again, I'm not pointing at schools about anything, but the jurisdiction is the Board of Health. The building commissioner is involved because when someone says there's something in the building, of course, he inspects, he worked with the Board of Health, and the reports are in. There's gonna be a meeting to discuss it with school authorities first. My understanding is the reports are going to be made public. The story about what Mrs. Aaronstein alluded to, if that roof didn't pass last night, we got a whole nother problem.
Of course.
The fact of the matter is, we know it passed, so we know a new roof is gonna be put on. So the approach to dealing with anything they find is different when you know you're gonna get a new roof, as opposed, they didn't vote it and it's gonna keep leaking. I can also tell you that the middle school and the elementary school are included in the reports, and that will also be part of the information that's made public. But as a courtesy, they are meeting with school officials first. Rest assured, the Town of Dayton Board of Health is not gonna let this go.
Great.
All right.
That's
So I would
what
just,
I wanna hear.
what I would sug-
I'm just not hearing
no,
that.
I understand. And what I would suggest to you is, hold off on the schools, contact the Board of Health, because from what I saw, it's the Board of Health that's carrying the ball, because now this is not per se a regional district problem, it's a Town of Dayton Board of Health,
Correct.
okay?
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's what I know.
Selectman
Thank you.
Zappis? You have
So I will, I guess, follow up with the Board of Health at the end of the week?
well, I plan on contacting you tomorrow after the
Great.
meeting,
I
so
love that answer.
I'll get your information from Ross.
Great.
I wanted to piggyback off what Selectman Goulart said. It's not something to agree with, it's just objectively true. This is a Board of Health issue. I would totally agree. That's why my concern is why they weren't automatically getting the copies of the reports as they were coming in. It seems like these are things that were, so going
Fundamental.
forward, they should be getting a copy, because I know if we were still the Board of Health,
would be.
we would have wanted a copy immediately, not after the fact. So we just need to make sure, and that will go to what Mr. Chairman was saying about the organization. I think them having a copy of the report, now they're gonna read it, and then they're gonna talk about how to proceed going
And
forward.
also to
And that
know
makes sense.
that processes are in place, and I think to your point, processes are in place to handle this. So what happens in 20 years when you need a new roof again?
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
leaking,
and
there's gotta be inspections, regular
Just
inspections.
state
to stay-
regulations too. If they rip that roof off, and God only knows what's
What's
in
in
the
it, right.
walls and ceilings, and if there's bigger problems, that does have to be reported to the state. So we might even have a bigger problem on our hands, and.
And that's why the building commissioner is
Right,
involved.
and my
Exactly.
concern is, if that is the case, these kids have been in this building exposed to whatever the unknown is. That is very alarming to a lot of people.
We'll get
Not
to the-
only for children, but for our educators in town too. It's unacceptable,
We'll
you
get,
know?
we'll get to the bottom of it, and I want to also assure you that it may not be the direct purview of this board, but we will also ensure that something is done.
You
So
all
this
have my
gets,
contact info
Yeah.
too, so please,
And
if I
this
can
is-
be of any help, I'm available.
Mrs. Aaronstein will inform us of what's going on, but we'll
Thank
be
you very
involved.
I can tell you, when we were the
Great.
Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, going back, and Dr. Z can confirm this, I don't think we've ever seen reports from the schools
there was
relative
never-
to this kind of thing.
That's how
So
I
that's
know
why
they were
I
dropped
feel
off.
better about the Board of Health getting involved.
Well, and like I
Personally.
said, when I called Mass DEP, they will refer you to call your local Board of Health for this.
Right.
This is a
Absolutely.
local issue, and then it works its way up.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
like I said, it's an alarming topic, and, you know, people don't know that they have toxic black mold until it's too late,
Right.
you know? So, that's just, I just wanna know what the
What it
bottom
is.
line
Yeah,
is.
and I thank you for being so,
Absolutely.
an advocate for this.
You know, it's a safety and health
That's
issue.
right.
Our kids, our educators, they're important
Absolutely.
people.
That's
We
exactly.
gotta keep them, you know, in good health.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Morgan, do you have something? Sorry.
Yeah, I just, I thought, I could be mistaken on this subject, but I thought there was something ongoing being looked into by the building commissioner. I'm sure it has to come out in this meeting or whatever.
Well, this will all get on.
But I do recall, some stuff was being looked into, and once again, the chairman has been trying, well, all the select folks here,
Yeah.
been trying to be proactive with other things, so they're not totally out of the loop on this.
Yep.
Oh, Tom Burke went to 3076 Hunters Hill Drive, sorry. Just put that on the end there, so, sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Since we have the sewer commissioners here, I want to, any other public input? Mike, any? Okay. We're going to drop down to sewer commissioners to discuss the flow calculation study.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I make a motion that we take agenda item 6A out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. Are you here for us, or are we here for you?
I don't know, you guys kind of invited us, you sent us a letter.
Yeah. Okay. You want to,
Do you
Wanna
want
go
me to go with
Yep.
this? So we asked the sewer commissioners to do a flow calculation
Right.
study. And they gave us back some documentation from 2007 and a letter and saying that that's what they're reliant on. However, I thought that you were here, you know, to talk a little bit about it, but I might be mistaken.
Well, we can, to my knowledge, we didn't know much about what you wanted,
Yeah.
where you wanted to do it, where you wanted the calculation from, you know, I don't know who's gonna pay for it. You know,
That's a
everything-
fun
everything
question.
there, so it's kind of-
We are
Beginning
interested,
stages,
right,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we're interested in economic development, and providing it an opportunity for the right business to locate here. And a lot of businesses, what is a detriment is sewer. It's not attractive to a business to have to go and build their own wastewater treatment facility if they're large, or their own septic system. You know, a restaurant won't come here and build their own septic system. It's just not profitable. So we're asking the sewer commissioners to look into where can we expand? Where does it make the most sense? How is it feasible to link up with Somerset? Is it feasible to, I know you have some things going on with Taunton right now. So do we want to continue with that? I don't know. So that's what we're just asking you to
Well, that's
explore.
kind of what we were trying
and-
to find out too, what area is the town looking to expand in? And I'm guessing it's probably 138.
138, yeah,
138 versus, we're not looking at the whole.
Right, no.
Right.
Or if there's
We're not there
another
yet.
location that makes sense to start at, you know, I don't want to pigeonhole it at all. If there's another location that makes sense, please
Well, I mean, if you're
explore.
looking for development, you know, for industry or something,
Yeah.
Mhm,
you
would
have
be
to
on
know
41.
non-Titan, that has sewage.
Right.
Potential there.
Well,
Potential there.
There's some
this lowest,
serious limitations there.
this lower section of 138, you know, it'd be a perfect place to have more industry, more commercial properties, but as she
There's
said,
Look at the cost and everything too, I mean,
Yeah.
to get it there, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
People going towards
Right.
Somerset rather than people coming to the
Well, well, that's another,
And if Somerset, does Somerset want anything?
And- and that's something we can,
So, I mean, we can keep it simple, and if you are willing, if the sewer commissioners are willing to kind of jump on this exploration boat, I guess, that we're on, we can ask Serpid to, I know, I'm sorry. We can ask Serpid to maybe do some sort of studying and examine the area. I know that they're working with Somerset right now, so potentially, can we jump in on that? But I don't, if you don't want to do this, if this is not something that the sewer commissioners are in favor, I mean, we can't make you do it,
Have any problem with
so.
expanding or?
I
I think,
actually was at a meeting and I met a gentleman who's running for planning board in Somerset, and he gave me the name of some, because they're doing this Serpid with this study to how to expand their whole system into adjoining towns, so we'll have to, talk to them as well, but.
I'd like us to piggyback on that. I'd
That's
like
right.
us to be able to be
Absolutely.
in
Yeah,
on that,
yeah.
so. I've heard.
Oh, you live in Somerset?
No, he's,
Oh,
But, I mean, back to the sewer system that we presently have, we have a series of pump stations along 138, and it goes up to the Dayton Police Station presently,
Right.
which we're kind of under a moratorium on that station, being that it's small, and we had some issues of growth, so there would have to be some changes.
Sure.
If we want to go
yeah, I know, yeah.
to the town.
I know you just can't run a line down there and everything's solved, so, yeah.
And there's,
Right.
you only can put so much
And
in
then
a
you,
pipe.
yeah, and then you even gotta check with Tom too to make sure that
We
their
can
pipes can handle
set
the
it.
excess flow of the second too.
So I guess, I think the way we're looking at this now is kind of a feasibility to see what's possible, what's not
And-
possible, and then
and what's the
kind of,
best fit?
and what's the best fit, and then where do we go from there, so maybe,
And really, when I first began, I met with, a variety of department heads. I know everyone's heard me say that. But part of what came up is that the sewer commissioners, we didn't really have a great relationship. So I'm really trying to bring that in so that we have a good, you're so important, like, to us thriving. So I wanted to bring that in. So this is just my way of doing that.
good for you.
If something is done with Somerset, do you think it'll be Pleasant Street first?
We've always had somewhat of a need in that area.
Yes.
But the other thing, the other connections would be 138 or Elm Street, and Elm Street is very rocky, and 138 doesn't have a lot of homes, but the
Correct.
waterfront,
And it doesn't even have a lot of places to build.
right, but the waterfront, along Pleasant Street, to get it to 138,
That's more of an area.
That would make
probably
sense.
needs-
Yeah, that's correct.
yeah.
You pick up the whole park and everything, I would think.
Well, we don't want to touch that, I'm just talking
So don't go there.
Pleasant Street,
Been there.
but just Pleasant Street to get it to 138, that would be good.
So shall we
So I
appoint
guess,
like a,
do we have your blessing to reach out to Serpid and see what can be done? So that's what I'll do.
and we'll get, and we'll keep you guys involved, obviously, so, okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Appreciate you coming, answering the questions, and
Has Bob retired?
May 11th.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
That was the day. Yeah,
Okay.
so. Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Very good. See.
Okay. Okay, let's go back up to Town Administrator's report.
Okay.
You have the floor.
Sorry, just writing my notes, I make sure that I do that. Okay, I'm just gonna skip over the Selectmen's budget recommendations, because I can breeze through the other item, and I do actually just wanna make an announcement. The boards and departments that were voted on to move next door to Old Town Hall have officially made the move. If you're looking for Conservation, Board of Health, ZBA, Building, or the Veteran Service Officer, they are over at 1111 Somerset Avenue, which is Old Town Hall. There is not a way to connect from Town Hall in the back here to there. There's no car traffic allowed pass through the playground because it presents a danger. So if you need to go there, you'll pull in off of Somerset Avenue, 138, and pull in, and you can park down in the back by the Lions Club Pavilion. So the offices are on the bottom floor, and that's how you would most easily get through to that area, but they've made the move.
Great.
The Housing Choice Initiative, this is something that was on the agenda maybe a couple months ago, and we tabled it. The zoning board has looked into the Housing Choice Initiative, which is a program that has been set forth by the governor. And the idea behind this program is to put together mixed-use to provide increased choices for housing in the Commonwealth. So people who are maybe aging and they want to downsize, they don't want to leave their communities, they can find a condo or an apartment or something that allows them to stay in their community. There are grants, similar to the Community Compact, there are grant opportunities if the town of Dayton becomes a housing choice designated community, but it does come with some strings attached, I guess. So the major impact is that, and they sent you a letter, it's in your packets.
Right, let's see.
The major impact is that this list of local zoning votes become no longer a supermajority requirement, but just a majority. And the fear is that that opens the door, that you don't have to convince as many on the board that it's a good idea.
Right.
So they were hesitant about that. There's also for smaller towns that are under 7,000, which of course is not us anymore, they have some little extra advantages, but their positive advantages, something we'd want to attain, but we can't, we're ineligible. So the prime benefit to being the housing choice designated community is sort of lost on us at this point, and it does seem like we're gonna be subject to it anyway. The main push for this growth is to get enough communities on board that they can start reforming both Chapter 40B and potentially 40A, but mostly 40B laws at the state level, which we've all been crying to please, please, please modify these laws. The ZBA plans to vote on this initiative, whether or not they recommend to be a designated community, on April 18th. So if that's the case, they'll be running up here, if they vote favorably with hey, we voted favorably, can you please designate us? But we'll have conversations about that.
So we should wait to vote on
For
this
them.
until
Absolutely.
they move first? I'm
For
fine with that.
they're gonna look into it. You do have some information here about it and what comes with it. It's very similar to you can see the community compact type design rolling out. But
Set.
there are strings attached. We fit the bill. We have had tremendous growth. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that.
So is that the major change, the supermajority to majority?
It's the kind of the most
Biggest-
impact.
yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying, right, yeah.
Because now that changes the face of your
Right.
zoning. But it's sort of things that we are already doing, the mandating where things go. We have pretty smart zoning laws, in my opinion, here. They are well thought out, so, for housing development.
Not getting too much into it, I was at the CPTC meeting with Chairman Taylor, where we first got this material, and my first impression was, seems good that you can choose where things go, but there's always another side to the sword, so to speak. So I think that's fine that the zoning board's gonna vote on this on the 18th, because I think it'll give me and my colleagues, us all more time to sort of digest it in detail.
And I'm on the fence. I don't like signing up for something that seems great, hasn't been tested, and then we're on the hook for something that we didn't really think
No,
that
the
we have to.
consequences, though, yeah, right, absolutely. So wait to hear from them and see what their
Right.
recommendation is. Good.
I think the other thing too is, because it's statewide, the large communities, just like with 40Bs, get what they want. And then the rest of us who receive less aid are ordered to do things that, we want to keep our little communities rural, we want space, we want all that. And so I realize that you have to have places for people to live, but I really think that there should be some kind of local control still available to the communities that want to stay kind of rural and open and grow slowly. And that's my biggest concern about these.
And the ZBA does share those concerns, but as you read through what would be just a majority vote and not require supermajority, you take away a lot of that characteristic.
Just like the statewide Title V that they tried to implement, and I hope that's gone away.
But I do like how they try to lure the smaller towns in by telling you can have more open space, but it's because you've clustered a bunch of developments close by, and people in Dayton like their houses far apart, so.
And here we are talking about public sewage, which we don't have in most of the town. And obviously the big cities do, and the larger communities.
Yep.
They can
So they can
handle-
build on top of one another.
I mean, there's pros and cons to it, because, you can build them closer together, that means you retain more open space, though.
That's true.
So,
It's true.
it depends, it depends on where you sit, but,
Exactly.
And I think we'll wait to hear what the zoning board.
I'm a little hesitant on it. I don't know if I
What?
would, I'm a little hesitant on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am too, yeah,
Yep.
believe me.
We'll do our due diligence,
Yeah.
and we anxiously await your recommendations, zoning board.
Thank you to the ZBA.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now the selectmen's budget. So I forwarded this to you, gave this to you, printed it out if you requested, updated it. I wanted to make sure that you saw this, so I'm printing this out as well. Karen, I do have a copy for the record.
Oh, the filing, yeah.
Is this the single page? I found it on my desk the other day. Is it 326
Thank you.
over there in the bottom?
No,
326.
4-4.
Oh, I don't have that one. This one's 326. Oh,
326.
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, yeah.
4-4. I'm looking down here.
Oh,
okay,
okay,
version
all right,
one.
okay.
Yep,
All right.
we're good.
Okay, that's old, I think.
So this is for you, just in case you. So that's stuff that you need. Again, I'll just reiterate, I went through here. I wasn't really motivated to make a lot of cuts because I think that the department heads were very responsible in their requests. There were a couple of places, I went to gas lines. I looked at historical expenditures and kind of cut down on some of those. There are some unknowns, but we'll just, nature of the beast, we have to just sit and wait, and we will work closely with the finance committee. I will tell you this, that the finance committee is starting their first go-around of this on April 10th, which is next Tuesday, and I think they'll be taking like a little break in between because of some vacation schedules, so we do have time. I don't want you to feel that we have to do this whole thing tonight, but my thought was that you do what you did last time and go through, and if anyone wanted to hold a
Yep.
budget.
Yep, okay. So probably the best way is that you go down through and kind of
Sure.
one at a time, and
Okay.
we'll ask questions.
Some of the budgets came in and it looked like they were just a 2% increase for the sake of being a 2% increase, so I always looked at historical expenditures. So the salary for the checkers for town meetings,
Yep.
last year was 2,000, and it went up by 2%, went up by $40, but they'll not reach that. So I didn't see the rhyme or reason in just putting in $40 for a 2% increase. It's not, they're not gonna reach that figure. So I put that back at 2,000. So that's in the town meeting budget.
Okay.
And I kept, the same goes for the next line there, off-duty police details. It went up by 2%. And I brought it back down to level fund it.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to continue to another budget or if
Yeah,
you want to
I
vote
would
on
just
them.
go,
Oh, okay, I'm
go
sorry.
down, and as we,
Moderator, I left that alone, for we put that in at 2%, it was a board of selectmen budget, so that went up by 2%.
I wonder, do we want to go through the whole thing and then make a motion, or you want to do them department at a time? You have any preference? Nancy?
Like section by section?
Let's,
Section by section, yeah.
Let's do them in clumps unless there's a hold. That's what we do at town meeting.
Mhm.
All right, so, yes, let's
Right.
do that. So
Okay.
the next budget is the Board of Selectmen, which, this is the same that you voted on, barring, I did remove the 2% increase, but, I understand if you'd like to plop that back in. That's the only change I made to that.
Wait, who want, what?
The 2% increase to the selectmen salaries,
Mhm.
I took those out, in my recommendations,
Oh,
but,
okay, yeah, I
if
thought you
put-
said someone wanted it back. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
totally
no, in
misunderstood.
case you did,
I want to address those
okay,
historically.
that's the only change I made. The town administrator budget, I did not make any changes.
Was Selectman
I-
Goulart gonna say something?
You want, what do you
Oh,
want
I'm
to?
sorry.
You want to just?
Oh, I was going to say, let's do the first page, and then before we vote on the first page that ends with
Reserve.
132,
Mhm,
just go back to that one.
mhm.
Okay.
My budget is the same as what you saw previously and voted on. And the note there is just what I anticipate to come out of the, dues and subscriptions is a substantial line at 5,000. So that's just a note of what I intend to come out of that, and included in that is Sursage. And I do anticipate taking another course for my procurement certification.
Okay.
And the finance committee requested, this, I left this alone, they just requested that 2% increase for the salary, and, just a level fund for their remaining items, other than dues and subscriptions. That is a level fund, I'm looking at the wrong. And then the reserve fund, again, level funded from previous years, 50,000. Seems to be a safe number. And Selectman Goulart wanted to
Yeah.
revisit 122.
Going up to the salaries for Board of Selectmen. You had initially said everybody got 2%. I was surprised when this was removed. And what I'm going to say is, when we split the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, I made the recommendation, we split the money right in half. However, the Finance Committee did not agree, and the Finance Committee said that as the executive board, elected board,
Okay.
the selectmen should be paid more than the Board of Health. Now, the Board of Health came back with a proposal that said they should be paid the same. The Finance Committee didn't allow that. So, all I'm saying is, if we're gonna maintain what the Finance Committee did last year, we should leave it at that.
Okay.
I did wanna comment on, I only have,
Let's discuss, why don't we
Okay.
discuss that?
sorry.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think it's a good gesture. I mean, because, their recommendation, I have to look at when we get to health, but their recommendation was to increase them a little more. And I personally think it would be a good thing not to take a 2%. I think it's $11.
Okay to speak, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What I will say is, everything Selectman Goulart said is 100% accurate. But I do just feel, the same as Mr. Chairman regarding the gesture. I'm okay with not having the 2% increase, and that's fine. If you want to give it to me, that's fine too.
This is not a reflection that I
No.
think you're not doing a good job. That's not at all. I think you guys are great and
I hope
very
so.
proactive,
But
and
I
it's
raised the issue
impressive.
because, as I said, the
Yeah.
Finance committee.
recommended
Yeah.
cut that I made was much steeper, and they said no.
And I can totally understand that. They're right. You're the governing body of the entire town. I understand that wholeheartedly.
I do have a question on the dues and subscriptions. Do we have in place,
Under which category?
town administrator,
Okay.
do we have in place a way of monitoring purchases? Now, I know people, they don't have to go with Sursage, they don't have to go with this one, they don't have to go with that. But is there anything in place, maybe at the department level, where someone is monitoring to make sure that truly the best price is?
So I have
What we're gonna
actually, right now, what we have joined into, we're starting the first 2 spring procurements are paper and DPW services. And I asked Tom Ferry to monitor that for me. He did check, when we were invited to the open house, they just happened to have their award of bid for DPW supplies. It was just part of their meeting. And I asked him and Cahal O'Brien in the Dayton Water District to take those and look at them. Do they match up with your procurements that you achieved, or that you procured for yourselves? And Cahal found an immediate savings.
Good.
And Tom told me, a little bit here, a little bit there, it was just kind of a wash. The major savings for him, let alone money, there is savings in money. But things like today, he needs to order some catch basins. We've asked if we could piggyback on the last contract, and they're gonna sell us these catch basins. And Tom told me that nobody bid separately to provide the town of Dayton just on its own catch basins, but they did bid for this large consortium. So we were able to procure
That's
catch
good.
basins at a lower rate,
Yeah.
just by virtue of being with them, because it makes more sense for a vendor to do catch basins like that. So that's good news, that's a savings.
And on
There-
our paper, remember the meeting we had with Kathy Mercer?
Oh, yes.
Bertha this week?
Yes, the recycled paper.
Recycle paper, are we gonna be able to do
Yes,
that?
we can.
Good.
There are departments here that are purchasing recycled paper already. So what the town accountant provided for me was a year expenditure spreadsheet, and I just matched it up with exactly what we had purchased that year, and I put it in, it's a Google document that you put in your amounts, and Maura's job is to put that all together and go out to bid, and recycled paper's on there, I
Good.
put some in there, so yes, we can do that.
This is part of this solid waste discussion we had, which I'm sure she'll tell you more about. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
We had a
So,
bit of a
but
discussion.
there's also other savings I just want you to be aware of. The procurement class I attended yesterday was half off. There's a hoisting license training. These guys are required to update their hoisting licenses and go to training every 2 years.
You mean the streets
That's half
department?
off.
Okay.
That's half off. So there's auxiliary savings, not just in the time and effort it is to procure something, that's great savings, but, and the prices, but also these other opportunities that are available to us. But
It's
yes,
not-
I fully intend to track this, make
I was
sure
gonna
it's a
say,
good
so
deal.
that's not too much trouble, because it'd be good to know at the end of the year how much we actually save by going this route. Sounds like a lot.
Mr. Chairman, permission to speak?
Go ahead.
Thank you. What I wanted to say is, in the spirit of savings, right, we're all in a savings mood, where it says communications, green communities,
Which section?
That's in the Board of
one
Selectmen.
twenty-two, under Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Communications, green communities, that can be reduced to 0. We didn't submit, first of all, we're not a department, so we didn't submit a request. The reason why it's going to be 0, we had money in the FY18 budget so that we could send out a mailer before the annual town meeting. Oh, I'm a member of the Green Communities Committee. Once we have sent that this year, and then we'll bring to town meeting the stretch code, we'll see how everything shakes out. But assuming that it passes, we're gonna be submitting our application in October of 2018. So we're not gonna need any money for 2019, so we can
Great.
actually reduce that to 0. Sorry, I'm
Nice,
long-winded.
thank
I like
you.
to take the
No, it's all
roundabout
right.
scenic route.
I have to agree, I'm the same way.
One other question, and this is more for curiosity. Under 122, benefits clothing allowance, there was $200 in it.
Yep.
Year-end balance is 0. A, who gets that money and what was it spent on?
This is
I'm
Karen's
curious. Uh-huh.
clothing allowance, as she mimics the
Mhm.
clerical union. And where it's down to 100 is because we have moved Karen in half the town administrator budget and half the Board of
Gotcha.
Selectmen. So that's everything. So
Yep.
the budget and the town administrator will provide $100, the other half of the clothing allowance.
Thank you, I
Is-
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
It's in here for
absolutely.
200, it's in here for 200, isn't it? Am I missing
It should be
something?
100 in 124 and 100 in 122.
No.
Let's make sure
No,
that's
it's
not.
It's
200.
in here for 200.
So
Oh,
you just
so
make
that
that,
should be that's an error, that should come down to 100.
so you think I'm not paying attention, huh?
Sorry about
Good
that.
try, yeah. No, I'm
good
just
catch.
kidding.
Look, we're saving all over the place here.
And then 100 for, nope, you have it in as 0 for town administrator clothing allowance.
Right.
So we should put
be
it 100,
Oh, I
right?
have it in for 100, hold on. Oh, my recommendation, so that should be 100. All right, well, we didn't save anything.
Just making sure we're good.
Yeah, that should be 100, sorry about that. Yes, we're splitting.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about
No.
this section?
No.
Want to make a
Oh,
motion?
one question, so are we, as a board, okay with the removal of the 2% increase for our salary?
What I was gonna do is make a motion for the
Mhm.
ones I support, which isn't 122, and then have a separate motion on 122.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve Department 113 as presented, which means with the cut. That $40 that's up there.
Yep.
114, the moderator. 124 with the changes that were discussed, which is,
Clothing allowance.
yeah, it's the clothing. 131, Finance Committee, and 132, Reserve Fund.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Okay, let's go back up to 122.
Selectman Goulart first. She probably-
No, I'm gonna vote against it, so I've.
So-
I've
Oh,
made a
okay.
proposal
All right,
for
I'll make the
ones that I support.
I thought you had more to say, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve Department 122's current budget as outlined here with the aforementioned changes on the communications, green communities, and benefits clothing allowance.
I'll step down a second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
Supposed to say nay.
sorry.
Okay, that motion
Nay.
carries.
I think this is a good process.
You like this?
I like it, it's helpful.
It's double-sided, so you gotta flip it over.
Flip it
Oh,
up, yep,
that's Karen being efficient,
always.
double-sided.
Okay, town accountant?
I actually did not make any changes to this. The only thing that I was looking at, well, as you know, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I do recommend a contract with the town accountant, but that is ultimately the Board of Selectmen's decision. And I just was looking at the overtime. She had submitted $7,500. I dropped it to $7,000. I think that could even come down lower, but I have asked everyone to keep track and monitor their overtime for the last 2 months. It's due at the end of this month. So not having that information, I'm hesitant to just,
Yep.
strike.
Yep,
But,
okay. I got a question on the increases. They're 1.94 for her, for the town accountant, and
I'm not sure.
2.05 for the
The
assistant.
assistant. I'm not sure why that's coming out that way. These were her figures, and
Maybe just
this
take,
whole process, I would like next year to bring in a personnel form where
Yeah,
you
right.
put out, this is your salary from the previous fiscal year, your increase, your any step changes you receive, and longevity and all that, just so that it's clear. Otherwise, it's like a goose egg
yeah, I
to,
know, yeah.
a goose hunt.
So
to
maybe we should just
figure out,
check that
but
number
double
to
check
make
with
sure
her.
it's correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about that line?
What
Okay.
is, I just have one question about your notes, actually. What is recommend to contract with BOS? Is that, are you recommending an employment contract?
Correct, with
Okay.
the town accountant. I had mentioned that a couple weeks ago, but I do, that's my recommendation, I guess.
Okay, Board of
Thank you.
Assessors?
That salary doesn't look high enough.
What?
What's the correct
Which one? What are you talking about? Which
town
one?
accountant?
It's,
Isn't it higher? Isn't she being paid
as
more
of
than that?
FY '18, her FY, so if you go to the third column in, it shows what it is currently. And it is an
Third
increase, but
column in?
the third column in from the left, I'm sorry,
That's what it currently is.
it says
87.
87.
So
But to
with
your
the-
point, I don't think it's high enough, because it's not a straight two. I don't know why.
Yeah, we'll check
And the
that.
only thing I can think of is it's 52.1 days this year. So if you just put in your rate times 52, you
Weeks.
may
you
have
mean.
had, right,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I understand.
My brain is like,
Okay, any further discussion on that department? If not, let's go to Board of Assessors.
okay. I don't believe I made any changes to this. I'm just verifying. Most of this was level or decreased. They, what they did is decrease some lines to increase other lines. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Board of Assessors. The $5,000 in this equipment repairs and maintenance, the three of them in that office do need new computers.
Okay.
So
So
that's why that is higher.
So it went up from last year's budget, 162 to 190.
160, where?
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, 178. 190. I'm looking at the third column, I'm looking at the last column.
That would be mostly in the salary line,
Okay.
because you're putting in, the new clerk
Okay,
is a difference.
okay,
So the
She got
salaries make
Additional hours, right? The new clerk.
additional hours from last year, and,
Got it.
she's at a step 6, which I'm not sure, the previous person wasn't here when, I'm not sure
yeah,
where she was
okay,
at.
that's fine, I wasn't thinking about that.
So the only changes, we have increased hours and we have some equipment, is that it?
Yep, they are, but they took money from other lines to soften that increase for those computers. You'll see the decreases, there's a $300 increase, not huge, but it's a
It's-
responsible budget.
Yeah, looks like it, okay. Any other questions there? Okay, town treasurer.
The treasurer's also looking for a new computer, but I don't remember if she put it in the collector budget or the treasurer budget, so I'm just double checking that. Anyway, her salary goes in here. They share, Christina, so you'll see that same kind of thing where it's like half the clothing allowance.
Yep.
So there's their salary going up 2%. And then everything else was level. And equipment repairs and maintenance is at 1,500. That is increased because of a new computer.
Mm-hmm.
Although, on that clerk, that 5116 line, shouldn't that be, it has a 1% increase, shouldn't that be 2?
Well, that line is gonna be odd because she had an increase of hours, I thought, from special town meeting. Let's see, is that not correct?
She got 10 extra hours in the clerk's
The clerk's
office. Is that
office.
correct, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, should the
So we'll
increase
have
be
to-
2%?
2%.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
shouldn't
if
be
she's
1%.
following or part of the
Right, so it shouldn't be,
clerical union,
Not
CBA.
necessarily though, depending on how that's figured out, so I'll just take a look at that.
Mhm.
okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that, town treasurer at lines? Okay.
No.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve Department 135, 141, and 145's fiscal year 19 budget requests as presented here tonight.
Could you just add
Mhm.
for me to examine those
Yep.
two salary, there's a salary question in the town accountant and a
Mhm.
salary question in the town treasurer for that clerk line,
Mhm.
5116.
Mhm. With the understanding that the town administrator will be looking into the two salary issues that we discussed tonight.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, going back to the town accountant, I thought we were reducing hers to 35 hours. This says 40.
I didn't,
I had a question about
I
that too.
didn't know that you voted on that.
No,
so I
we didn't.
Well,
take
that's
it
why I
out.
didn't think the money looked right, because I believe her salary is higher than this now. I mean, the money she's getting paid as we sit here right now for 40 hours, total dollars. Isn't it higher than that number?
I don't believe, this is what she submitted.
No, I don't think it's higher than that.
You think that's
No,
it? I thought it was higher than
only
that.
with the liaison.
Well, that's what I'm talking about,
But that, we took that out.
but if you take the liaison out, you gotta cut the hours.
Right. Well, maybe we
But
should,
the hours aren't cut.
You didn't vote on
We
that,
didn't,
so
we didn't.
I wasn't going
We
to
didn't.
delete
well, I guess that's
5
a,
hours out of somebody's.
May I, Mr.
So that
Chairman,
one's
check
up in
without
the,
a
that
vote.
one's up in the air.
Mhm.
go ahead, Mr. Zuc.
I just wanted to echo Selectman Goulart's sentiments. As I was sitting here, I was just thinking, okay, we have the salary for the town accountant at 40 hours, great, she does a great job, we're all happy. But then I thought back to exactly what Selectman Goulart said, so she's not the liaison anymore, which I assume would take up at least 5 hours out of the week,
That's
so.
what they added to her when they
Yeah.
had her
When
take
they
that
did
job.
Yeah.
So the question is,
But I wouldn't know how to reduce the salary accordingly with the
Well, I
5
have
hours,
to
that's the thing.
Look at it anyway,
Yeah.
work with her and
Yeah.
reduce
yeah,
the
you
5
figure,
hours.
because the
So I'm
question,
looking at it anyway.
So is
But
that-
you didn't vote on that, and
We
I
did.
did not want to
so we'll,
eliminate hours without a vote of the board.
right, sure. So the question is, are those extra 5 hours included in the
Included in this pay?
88? So if
Yes.
you take the 5 hours away, that number's gonna go down.
Right.
Got it. So,
So you'll get back to us on the,
but I think we
Are
should,
you gonna
I
vote
think we
on
ought to vote on
40
it
to
tonight to
35?
figure
Yeah,
if that's what we wanna do.
but are we gonna vote on an exact figure? I know we
No,
can
no.
vote on the hours.
No, she can
She'll
be,
figure
she
that
can,
out? Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, I'm okay with that, yep. Mr. Chairman, well, one question before I make a motion.
We got a
We already
motion.
voted,
We got a motion and a second. We're in discussion.
okay.
Right. So, but I think,
Can I rescind that motion, and then we'll discuss the hours, and then we can approve
can
the
do whatever you
sections?
want.
I'll rescind the second first.
Okay,
Then you do the motion.
yep. I rescind it.
okay,
I rescind it all.
okay, you wanna make a different motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Department 141 and 145, because we're gonna wait for the information on 135.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. But on on 135 town account, I think the issue we need to address
Mhm.
is that a position 40 hours or is that a 35-hour position? And I think, in what you said, and I wouldn't disagree, that we've taken that job away, so that should probably take the 5 hours away.
Well, I also think there's gonna have to be some discussion. You just can't cut a full-time person's whatever. But we should look into it, so.
Well, I'm not sure what we're gonna look into, though.
I have to look into this
The salary
salary
figure.
being correct, but
Mhm.
I believe you can go forward with the vote
the
on
hours,
40 to
right.
35 hours.
Yeah, right.
Okay, are you
But
accepting
these are
motion?
the reasons, because of this, and I think what Selectman Goulart's getting at, this is impacting somebody's
Sure.
And she's
Livelihood.
100% correct, absolutely.
Why I believe there should be a contract with the town accountant. And this is for any department head, but for the town accountant.
Okay.
And I'm
Mr.
accepting a
So,
motion.
so we got two items in this 135 department that are gonna be looked at, right? The clerk and the salaries for the accountant and the salary / hours for the accountant, the salary, I think it's the percentage of increase you're looking at for the clerk.
Yes.
I think she's gonna look at, is the salary correct, but I think we can act on the issue of the 40 hours or 35 hours.
Correct. And you'll get back to us on,
Oh, of course,
Okay.
on all of this, yes.
I don't think we can act on it because the discussion hasn't taken place with the employee, and she's a full-time regular employee.
isn't she still gonna be full-time at 35 hours though?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
full.
Well, no, because the change got made by the other board, and that whole thing wasn't addressed. Half of it's been addressed by this board, half of it hasn't.
Well, that's, I think, what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, we're trying to address the
Is
other
it
half,
to address
though.
the other half of that?
She's not present.
Well, I don't think she needs to be, this is a budget issue about a
It
position.
affects her, it affects her income and her hours. This is an important issue. If you're an employee and you're gonna have a 5-hour cut,
But I think that
and if
goes,
the money is,
but I think that goes back to our town administrator's recommendation that we have develop a contract with her, and then that problem is solved.
I'm not opposed to that idea.
No, that's really between
Mhm.
you, well, us and you and her. I mean, if she
Right.
wants to have a contract or she doesn't.
I have mentioned a contract to her before, just to gauge her interest. This was a while ago, before all of this. And she seemed
Okay.
like she was
Receptive.
interested, so.
So I think we can make a decision on the 40 versus 35.
I agree. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reduce the town accountant's hours from 40 to 35 for fiscal year 19.
I'll step down and second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
opposed, stay.
The motion carries.
I will report back to you on those items.
Now I think we need to approve the whole,
I don't think we can because we wouldn't know how much
I bet she's,
5105 is gonna be. But I don't think that's proper. I don't think
Okay.
we can just, we can't just, because we don't know what the figure is, so we wouldn't know what the, do you get what I'm saying?
I do, now,
And we're not in a
That's,
rush.
it's fine, we're not in a
Okay.
because
That's what I
the
was gonna
finance
ask you.
committee can't do every
okay,
department
that's
at
was my
once.
question. Are
So
they
we
gonna,
can hold, you
Okay.
know, we can give them enough to
okay,
do in one day.
Thank
Got
you,
it.
Mr. Chairman.
sounds good,
So we
okay.
will return to this budget.
Okay, let's go over to 146, the town collector. Anything to discuss?
No, I mean, this is a really basic request, and I'm just looking now, here she's at the assistant collector has 2.03%, and then the percentages are off again. And this is a main reason why I want those personnel sheets,
Yeah.
because you can follow along and see exactly, because maybe there's a step involved or what have you.
Okay.
So, we'll have to look into those, but the change should be nominal, you know.
It's like the other,
Tens
you're just
of
gonna double check those to make sure
Right.
they actually are 2%. Okay.
And point
But
zero.
this was the treasurer. I'll have to give her some credit there.
Also,
Sorry,
I,
Mary, I
you know,
love you.
Okay.
0.03% is not
It's
gonna,
not,
that
right,
point
right,
zero
it's
three,
not.
I mean,
Not
it's gonna be
amount to a
like
lot.
$2, yeah.
I know, but we wanna get it
No,
right.
of course, absolutely.
Okay. Any other thing on town collector? Town council?
Town council, I carried over the 50,000, which was a vote of the board when you presented, discussed your own budgets and what you were gonna submit. I did not change that.
And I did talk to Mr. Ferry, and I did get in touch with the Registry of Deeds, and based on everything I found out so far, I think this number is okay, based on fee structures and all that other good stuff that we had up in the air because of the sidewalk project and all that good stuff, so I think we're all set. And also, we had talked, we were thinking about reserves, so that should be okay too,
Great,
okay?
thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, town council?
That
We
was
just
town
did that.
council.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
next is data
Duh.
processing. The big thing here, and I will be the biggest cheerleader for this, a network administrator. We could really use that. This is my plug for town meeting and the finance committee. So we have this in as a person. I like 19 hours a week. This is budgeted for 20. But we would do a whole hiring, a posting, interview process and all of that for a person.
I'm just
I
concerned.
just think it's beneficial for the town to have an
Absolutely.
individual to contact, to come down here. There are companies, and again, I'm in the process, if you remember, we've asked for an assessment, and Karen's been kind enough to check on the status for that. That is ongoing. There were a couple of obstacles, but they're working through them. So we should be able to get this assessment and then be able to really go for a full-out bid process or a quote for other companies to see what they could provide for us with having a person or
So
somebody
this-
designated to be our rep
Yeah.
that's close by.
I think we saw it again today, didn't we, with terminal
Every
exchange
day.
change was
Every
here?
day,
Yeah,
I
so,
see this.
so I think I absolutely agree it should be, we should have a person on board. I'm not sure I agree with the 19 hours, though.
Okay,
Only because I think you're more likely to get a better candidate if they get some benefits. I realize it costs more, but, you know, we want somebody who's committed to this and they think they're being taken care of, so.
My only concern with doing 20 hours is then they're getting benefits,
Right.
and then 20 becomes 25, and soon we have a full-time person, and then in 3 years, they'll need an assistant. So I just think we should try to moderate it
Well, I think it,
as much as we
Been
can.
through
I'm
that
making
before,
light,
yeah.
but it happens, okay?
well, but I
Um,
think whether it's 19 or 20, I think that's a whole different issue, and I would agree with you. We'll have to assess it every year. If we need more time, we'll budget more time. If we don't, we won't, so.
But the 31,200 at 20 hours is a lot more deceiving of a number than 31,200 with 19 hours. That is the flat number. When you get 20 hours, you have to calculate
know,
what we're
benefits.
paying. Yes, we're subsidizing.
And my
their
concern,
insurance and all
I'm not
that.
saying we should spend more money, but I'm saying that if you want to attract a person who's committed to staying with us,
Mhm.
I think benefits is a huge thing. And I don't want to just give it away, but I mean, I think if we hire a good person,
Mhm.
we want to retain them.
But if
So-
we're hiring a network, so we don't know if we're hiring a person or a
Well,
network.
well,
Are we giving the company benefits? No,
No,
so.
No, well, certainly if we don't hire a person, that
Mhm.
would change it. But if we do hire a person, I think I think 20 hours is an appropriate,
I'd like to know what Selectman Goulart thinks about this.
My concern is the, first of all, if you're gonna make an employee, start adding 2% a year. 20 hours makes them an employee with benefits. Family plan is somewhere around 10 grand. I mean, it's
it's going
but
up.
does a
Astronomical.
part-timer get the full plan now?
at 20 hours, absolutely.
Mhm.
And they would have to join the retirement system.
Mhm.
So that would add to retirement benefits and the OPEB. It opens up a whole thing.
Yeah, I understand that.
What
I
I'm
understand
thinking
that.
is we could have a person who is actually employed by another company
That's exactly.
or owns his own company that freelances,
Sure.
that would be willing to come in. And if they own their own company and they're freelancing, they've already got their insurance, they've got their retirement plans, they're in business, and make the commitment to us. And if we find out that didn't work, then we can look at it the next time. But I'm just concerned about making them 20 hours employee, and I just see this going up and up and up.
I have to agree with you. My ideal situation is that this is a very part-time, as needed. There's tons of work to be done right now, so there would be a lot for this individual to do to kind of build up the position
20
or
hours, they're
set
gonna
us
join
up.
the union also, one of the unions.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm okay.
But we don't have to make that specific decision. I think what I'm looking for, not I think, I know, what I'm looking for
budget,
is the budget, but also where you're at, if you have a preference. I have a preference for a person, but that doesn't mean you have a preference for a person. So I'm looking for feedback on that. If you'd like to solely go after a company, those do exist, other municipalities use them, But for we're growing, we're expanding, we're looking to get into fiber optics. We have a lot coming down the pike, and I just would feel a lot more comfortable if we had a person
And the
there
same
as the
person.
go-to. And they could work with Brian McGonigal at DR and get us set up for our fiber and all
I
of
think a
that.
person has more of a commitment to you than a company.
I think if we find out also that we have a person this one's really good, we can always say in the future, we'd like you to come with us additional hours, make you an employee or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Leaves
think-
our options
okay.
open.
Yeah.
So can
why don't
we make a decision on this, and then we'll flesh out person versus company,
At a later-
benefits versus no
Sure, I
benefits,
just-
hours,
Just
you know?
want you to be aware, because we have it listed as a personnel line. So just to be aware, we can communicate these ideas to the
Yeah.
finance committee so they're aware as well.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
fine with me. but-
So,
Oh, I wanted to state unequivocally, we need something.
Yeah.
We need something, because what's gonna happen, when the fiber optic, comes to town is, it's gonna need to be implemented, and it's gonna need to be implemented correctly. I'm good at a lot of things, implementing fiber optic networks, not one of them. So I definitely see the merit, and I think we can flesh out the details after voting on the actual budget request.
If this person's good too, they can work with Ken Bell from TMLP, because Ken's gonna be coming up the road
Right.
and going left. And we want them to come up the road and go right, so we will have somebody here that, because,
so I think we're all in agreement that we need someone, so let's move on with a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Departments 146, 151, and 155.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried. Yeah, we're gonna have to pick it up a little bit, because we'll never get out of here tonight.
We're having the same thought. I was thinking if you wanted to go to the total general government, that would be 2 more pages. And then we
Oh,
could
okay.
And we'll
do
do
it
the
that way,
rest,
and then
okay.
do public safety
Do
next
you
time.
have an absolute date we need to get all of this?
Town meeting.
No, but I mean, ready for FinCom.
I'm actively working with Edgeworks, and
Yeah.
he's very patient with our growing pains of how we kind of change this process. But they're starting April 10th, and this gives us a good batch to send over to them to keep
Okay,
them
so they're gonna
busy.
start with whatever we send over. Okay, perfect.
And I
what-
did give them the whole budget of all the department requests, so it's not the first time they're seeing it. They're looking
Okay.
at it too.
Thank you.
So where do you want to jump to?
Oh, I want to just continue
keep
and
going
do
with the next motion. We'll
okay,
have more.
general
okay.
government.
We'll have more.
Okay.
Okay,
Got it.
tax title foreclosure, budget 158, that's level funded. Town clerk, again, there's some changes, but I think there's a step increase here. If you see this 3.97%, that's a step increase.
Okay.
The 45% increase, that looks really scary, that's because of the additional 10 hours. So there's salary increases mostly in this line. Don't want to get to elections yet. She was pretty fair down for her expenses. I don't believe they changed too much.
I just want to talk about those positions. These are not new positions. These are just positions we have to fund for this whole year because they were approved last year.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm just quickly looking. She went up, down. I mean, this is very fair.
She
She
went
went
down a
down
lot.
700 in her expenses, so her personnel line's high, but that's
That's
Really
because
out of our
What
control.
you just talked about, yep.
Elections is elections is high because there are 3 elections coming up in the next fiscal year. So that's reflected there. So
Okay.
that is an increase. Registration,
Looks like pretty status quo there.
yeah, yep. I mean, I'm very impressed. The department heads really did fair budgets. They were great. Conservation Commission. My little note to you here is that with the high amount of development in this town and the high amount of wetlands in this town, I think it would behoove us to examine the need of a conservation agent. Not that I don't think the conservation guys are doing a great job, they are, but they could use, I think, some support. So maybe a
Yeah.
conservation agent, give somebody else some more hours and be a little bit
Yeah.
more of a clerical person to that.
They
But
didn't
just
requ-
to be aware of that, that's
they
just
didn't-
my
They
thought.
haven't requested anything yet.
Nope, they didn't, this is just me,
Yeah,
thinking how it could benefit.
I absolutely agree with, because the situation we're in right now, where, yeah,
I've been harassing you, not literally, since you got here about the need for a conservation agent, so hopefully they'll.
Years ago,
they'll
we
also
had
see
one.
the merit. Yeah,
I thought I
I've heard that
It
too.
was a young woman.
Yeah, I heard that
And
too.
I think I don't know if she moved away,
Uh-huh.
but she was very good. I
And they
remember her
never
coming
filled
to
it again.
meetings.
Because Charlie didn't want to.
Uh,
Okay, so let's,
But that's something that is
Yeah.
beneficial to a town,
But
so
as
we'll
I
we'll
understand-
approve it at this level now, and then we'll
right?
deal with that later.
Just something to look at.
They have support with the current zoning board office manager
They do,
right now, which
and
is
I
good.
think now the conservation moving over to Old Town Hall gives that whole group, you know, everybody works well together, so, that's just gonna continue.
Planning board?
Planning board, I believe we are going to see some increases because of staff changes, but it's slight, and, they were pretty fair and reasonable.
I have
They
one
had some
question.
increases in professional technical, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Office manager salary, 4.54% increase, that's just due to the hours, correct?
The increase in
Okay.
hours which were approved at special town meeting,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you.
I think next year we'll have a little bit more basic,
right.
you know, because we won't have these hours changes. And then they did go up in their professional and technical for their GIS mapping.
Right.
So that's their big change.
I got one question on town clerk.
Town clerk, okay.
When we had town clerk, treasurer, collector, one person holding 3 titles, they were 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And I'm just looking at this and I'm realizing that now that we've split it, and we have one person holding 2 titles and one person holding 1 title, the person holding 2 titles is paid more than the person with the 1 title, as opposed to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But my other thought is in the town clerk, she has a degree, is that money in there? Because we do give department heads credit for college degrees, and she does have one, so that was my only thought. I don't know the
Isn't that
answer.
rolled out as part of the salary? I asked that question once, and I think not about this specifically, but how you're compensated for that. And I think it just rolls into the salary. So, is that what you're
We can
saying?
check on that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I'll
I'm
just
just wondering,
verify
that's
that.
all.
But I believe it's rolled into the salary. I'll verify that.
Okay.
Accepting motions?
Absolutely.
No, we're gonna keep going.
So we're gonna accept the motion on this page.
Oh, I thought we were gonna finish the
It's
department.
up to you. It's
Oh,
up
I'm
to you.
sorry. Oh,
Yeah, we can do them all together, that's fine.
Well,
we only have a
she
couple
said
minutes.
general
I
government.
I see
Another
what you're
page.
saying.
Give
Yeah.
me another page.
I got you. Okay, Board of Appeals?
Board of Appeals, so my big change here is, I mean, it's not big. I lowered their overtime line. The reasoning that Mr. Campuchico, the ZBA chairman, provided was that they newly split to a sole office manager that didn't split their time with the Board of Health, and that they weren't sure if the 20 hours was enough. The way I understand it is they did actually ask for a full-time. I just cut that down to 2,000. I think 2,000 is a normal amount to budget for overtime in special cases for a zoning board who might have long meetings, who might need multiple meetings for the nature of their work. So I cut that by 1,000, not a huge adjustment. The other line I was looking at was their professional and technical line. I think we could examine that, but gotta leave something for finance committee to cut, right? So I wanna do it all up here.
Is that legal services? Is that what that is?
It says legal and GIS mapping.
So that's like town council, their special
Their
council,
special
excuse me.
Right,
counsel.
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Now, so I understand is they've not requested additional hours for clerical?
They have not, I'm sorry, I'll be clear about that. No, they did not request
Okay.
additional hours.
Okay.
But the reasoning for having this $3,000
Yeah.
overtime line
They're
was
not
that they
sure.
weren't sure where it's new. I think 2,000 will be fine for that cause, and I don't think cutting it will do any damage.
It's something we could adjust if need be at the special.
I mean, if you work, you're paid.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't want to give anybody the wrong idea, but.
Okay. Development and Industrial Commission.
So what I did here, it's level funded from 7,100, their total budget. I changed some lines here, and you might be interested in this, Mr. Bergman. So I had visited their meeting and talked to them about TAP assistance, technical assistance program,
Yeah.
which tries to get towns ready and links them up with potential businesses to develop here and locate here. and I think we're a perfect candidate for TAP. So I funded that professional technical line at 3,000, so that's up from 1,000. But I took that 2,000 from their request
Right.
in communications for, which was 5. So they had a high communications line because they want to do mailings and postings. If I'm getting this wrong, please just jump in.
And a website
But
as
a
well.
website, there were some things for them to do. So I did leave some funds in there, 3,000, because I think that's more than enough. I know that they want to do some surveys and kind of reach out to the people, so we didn't want to leave them without the ability to do that. But that's just kind of a maneuvering of funds. It doesn't, where I did increase a line, it's just coming from another line. It's not
I only-
increasing the whole budget.
So they hardly, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm saying, my concern is that they've only spent $75. And so what, and I know this was a lot of discussion about this budget, this part of the budget last year.
Mhm.
And I just want to make sure if we're going to give them the money,
But
they have to have a
spend it.
plan for spending it.
Well, I'd like to push them in that
Wait,
direction of
if
the
I may.
TAP, sorry.
Yeah,
No, no,
I
no.
think I agree with you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, if it's okay with you, Mr. Berkwin, as I understand, there were a couple people who were pivotal on certain projects who resigned from the committee. So I think they're asking for sort of the same
Yeah.
amount total, because they're actually gonna implement what they had meant to do, last year as well. So I just wanted.
I don't
for
have
the
a
record.
I don't have a lot of trouble with it. I just
Yeah,
think we
no,
probably ought
I-
to
you've
get a
been responsible.
report from them. And I know you're on the committee, Mr.
Yeah,
Borkin, but, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Berkwin.
Good.
I was gonna wait till, can I
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done.
The one thing I couldn't get to the meeting last month because I was at the candidates. I had missed that meeting.
Okay.
We did want to discuss a couple of things, because when the town administrator did come down to our meeting, she mentioned that sometimes, it sounds kind of funny, but you do have to spend some money during the budget.
Well, you have to do what
Yeah,
you
gotta
wanted the
show
money
you-
for.
You
Right.
can't just increase if you don't spend. I mean, I'm not saying.
We don't
go out
wanna-
of
we
your way
don't-
to spend. I'm
yeah.
not- Don't get me wrong, it's not a big budget, I don't think that's a big budget for what that commission is charged with. I had a couple of ideas, I just haven't had a chance to.
I think that's something you need to work with through your committee.
Yeah.
but I think
we'll bring it back to you.
I'm comfortable with leaving it at the
Like,
7,100.
Can I throw just something out at it?
Sure.
It's a general discussion.
Yeah.
I had thought, like I know some other situations where commissions, committees in this town, because of record keeping, I suggested that even if the personnel changed, that you should have a laptop, perhaps. I know
Well-
it's expensive.
Well, that's something you need to
but,
budget
I mean,
and
that's
put
something
in
I
for.
just-
Yeah,
If you, I'm not saying
okay.
go out and buy a laptop, I'm just saying,
Well, that's something your committee ought to
Sounds-
discuss and put forward in a budget, so, yeah.
but we'll try to.
Guess we'll have to wait till
Stuff like
Brett
that, you know,
returns.
and I've used money, I've used my own, it's almost like using your own.
Yeah,
I
Selectman Goulart?
don't ask for reimbursement
Tom,
materials and stuff.
as I say, I realize you weren't at the meeting, but is there any activity that will take place before June 30th that you're aware of, whether it's an informational thing or something else, that would cause this expense to rise? In other words,
Well,
are they gonna spend any, do you think they might do a mailing or a brochure or something that would hit this fiscal year, which would increase this year's expenses, and maybe then have something to compare against next year? That's my question. You think something's,
I believe it would, we've got a meeting coming up.
so there's a potential that the expense will increase this fiscal year?
Yeah.
If you do this, whatever it is?
Yes,
I mean, I thought their presentation last year was a reasonable budget, so I think this is a
Yeah,
reasonable budget.
yeah, it's the
I know
same
they-
money.
but there is a
And
meeting.
this,
Okay.
this is not to say that work hasn't been done. I just, that member that did resign,
Oh, I
as you
know.
know and you're
I know,
aware, you
yeah.
know, she did do some work. I just want I don't want the
Yeah,
public
no,
to
no.
have the
Oh,
wrong
no,
idea.
I agree with you.
They're not just sitting around. I mean, they've done
No,
some.
we know that.
If I may
Okay.
clarify, work has been done, it's just not completed, so they just need the money to complete what they had already
exactly.
started.
Good. Okay, public buildings and property.
Public buildings. So this was a fun one. I didn't really cut too much of this, but I highlighted this energy for town office buildings. With the Green Communities Committee doing what they're doing, and our moving over to Old Town Hall, which is a basically a new building because they've renovated it. I think we should definitely look at this line next year, and historical spending, because we could find some savings there, I believe. But I didn't touch it this year because we don't know, and we don't know for the police, which will come later, with their new building, what their needs are. I'm sorry, Selectman Goulart.
And we might get a new proposal now that she knows that our contract doesn't end.
Oh,
June of
I'm sorry,
next year.
yes. We had a meeting today with Charlotte Diogo,
Diogo.
excuse me, from Constellation New Energy to talk about energy rates available to us as a municipality and our buildings. So Selectman Goulart, you're exactly right.
Okay.
I did increase minusculely the energy for the pavilion to reflect historical spending. Currently, we're over, just so I put up an extra $40 than what was requested.
May I make one comment regarding the energy, just before we move on? I did just want to let the public know, hopefully later this year, sooner than later, actually, the Green Communities Grant Committee, along with the Board of Selectmen, will be guiding some energy audits in the various municipal buildings. So once we get the result from those energy audits, which will have a certain baseline from a particular year, before we put in the energy efficient bulbs in here, Primetime and Old Town Hall, we'll have a better idea of exactly how much we're saving. So I just wanted to clarify that for the public.
Okay.
And one other line item to highlight is the custodial and housekeeping. We are procuring that currently. I have a quote from the current service that we use, and I've put it out. Because of the dollar value of the contract, I do need to solicit quotes from 2 other people. I've actually have 4 on my list because one said that he was not taking any more clients, so it's not hard to add somebody else.
They don't know what
So
they're
that's an
missing.
unknown.
Okay.
That's right, they don't. So it is a bit of an unknown. That's a safe, very safe number, and I will highlight that for the finance committee,
Okay.
that they can.
What did we come up with building insurance?
Building insurance.
Okay with that?
Just grab my, oops, sorry. It's like ridiculous amount of paper that I have here. No, I have, here it is. So our building insurance, I do need to sit with the town accountant. The way our insurance is parsed out for us, is not how it is in our budget. So finding out which insurances go in, but looking at the figures, that's an okay number.
The
And
60.
once I sit down with the town accountant, I'll be able to get accurate figures. But I don't see that really changing that much.
Okay.
We went up $5,000. We have a new building, that's brand new, it's a safe figure.
Did our insurer, have they set up a meeting yet to discuss coverage? We do an insurance review every year.
Right.
And I haven't seen him around. And he said he was gonna work on it.
I haven't either. I'll say that.
The other
That's
thing I wanna
something.
mention is, maybe you already know this, if not, we need to know. One of those storms that we had recently, I think the one that took the shingles off the roof, was a named storm.
Hurricane
And
Nor'easter Riley.
evidently, in our individual policies, there's a $5,000 deductible that if they name a storm, somebody in this building had roof damage to their private home.
Yeah.
They got an estimate. The adjuster came out. The estimate for work is okay. However, let's assume they had a $500 deductible on their house. The agent informed her that if a storm is named, whether it's a hurricane or a something else, in the state, it's an automatic $5,000 deductible, and that's what they reduced her claim by, and she's gotta come up with that money to pay for that. So my question is, does that apply to municipalities? I was not aware of this.
That
If
doesn't
it-
make any sense.
If
No,
the
it doesn't
storm
make any
had
sense.
not been named,
I
she
would
wouldn't be dealing with this.
I would
think
think
it would be the
opposite.
opposite.
That's what I would think.
That's
Well,
what
I'll
I
ask
thought,
that
but
question.
ask-
I will say this, we have compiled, our fire chief has done a fantastic job. He compiled everything that we had and submitted that on time to FEMA for that nor'easter. And the dates of the emergency period, so what your work would have to be done was April 2nd, that just expired. So we have filed for that. I'm shocked to hear that.
I know
I've
there's a
never heard
hurricane
But
that.
we'll-
clause if you live within so many miles of the coast, and we're in that area, but
This wasn't a
she
hurricane.
told me that, and I was
Why
shocked.
don't we
I'm
look into
shocked.
that, but I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
absolutely.
so,
We may all be shocked.
okay.
I told you that we're procuring custodial maintenance now, building insurance, and town reports I level funded.
Okay.
It seems to be very much in line with historical spending, so they didn't touch it.
Okay,
And
so
that
now
would
we
be all
go
of them.
back to,
158,
58.
tax title
158.
foreclosure.
You don't know.
okay. 158.
You can just flip this over.
Should be at the top.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the following departments be approved. 158, 161, 162, 163, 171, 175, 176, 189, 192, 193, and 195, which is that the town administrator is going to just check into that degree status on the town clerk.
Town clerk.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna,
We'll finish the rest.
I know, I'm sorry, I guess I just assumed you'd want to stop at general government.
well, I don't know.
We'll be here all night,
Yeah, we will. Okay.
and I have
And that's a
tendinitis.
good,
So you want-
that's a good
I
bit
have
to
Come
go
back
start.
to this next week.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks for your work.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And you know, the department has made it basically easy because they were very
Excellent.
cognizant of public funds.
Okay. So we've done the budget. Okay, we've done that. Selectmen Rules of Order is the next item. We had a brief discussion last week about this. I mean, I put this together, and the purpose was not to circumvent anything. The purpose was to kind of, as a board, get us all to agree that these are the very basics of how this meeting will be conducted and you know, that kind of stuff, because this kind of stuff is not in Cushing's manual, you know, so.
I took time to go through, and I'll tell you what's not in Cushing's manual. If you'd
I
like.
mean, but it doesn't matter whether it's in Cushing's in my mind or not. This is just to give us an outline of how we'll conduct this meeting. You want to go through them one at a time?
I'd love to start with number 4. We can go out of order if that's okay.
Yeah, fine. Number 4.
For the public,
Yeah.
it just says, any meeting, public hearing, or special session of the board will recess no later than 11 p.m. unless there is a unanimous vote of the board to extend the time, excuse me. The only reason I don't agree with this is simply because Selectman Goulart and I have had meetings that absolutely had to go past 11. So I just don't think that approving this would allow us the flexibility that we need. My personal philosophy, I'll be as brief as I can. If someone wants to come down here and rant for an hour about how terrible of a job I'm doing, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna take it on the chin because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I was elected to do. So that's why I posed number 4, and I don't, if Selectman Goulart has,
I mean, it
or
still gives,
Mr. Chairman.
it still gives us the opportunity to go beyond 11. It just requires a vote. I don't know, what are
Well,
your
it
thoughts?
does require unanimous.
Right.
Would it make you more comfortable to do, like a
Majority?
majority vote?
What
Or
would-
you don't like a vote at all?
Yeah, what would make me really comfortable is not doing it at all.
What are your thoughts?
I
Selectman
see no reason for these. I last week made a suggestion. I think whether we use Cushing's, and I think we have some flexibility. If it's not in Cushing's, we can use Roberts because they're very close. And all I think we need to do is just, at what I asked for last week, just very short, this is the order of business, you know, the way you call the vote, the second, the discussion, if you have to admit, not pages. I mean,
No.
the official manual of the town of Dayton is Cushing's, and we know it's old, we know it's archaic, there's been talk about doing away with it, but, as I said, we can use Roberts because it's close and it's flexible, but I'm very uncomfortable with this whole thing, because we know it's accepted by the town, we know it's Cushing's. And if the Board of Selectmen sets separate rules for its own meeting, that allows other boards to do the same, and I
That's
think
sep-
we're going in too many directions.
Yeah, they're not separate rules. They're just clarification of some rules, and it's also adding things in here that are not addressed in Cushing's.
That's why I'm saying Roberts. We could have a.
Oh, Roberts, I don't care,
Roberts.
but it's
Oh,
not,
yes,
it's
they
not.
are. Yes, they are, because you couldn't conduct a town meeting or any kind of business meeting that uses either Cushing's or Roberts if it's not covered.
I understand that, but let's go to 2A. Prepare the agenda in conjunction with the town administrator will include items that the chairman reasonably anticipates to be discussed. Prepare the agenda in conjunction with the town administrator. That's not in Cushing's or Roberts or
We
anywhere.
don't need
But we're
that as a
already doing
rules of
that.
order. That's already, that's a
Yeah, we-
policy that's in place.
That was my other thing, is
That's
a lot
already
of these
working.
things, I actually agree with Mr. Chairman. I would say I went through
Okay.
point by point. Honestly, 80% of it I agreed with,
Okay.
and the things I agreed with we're already doing. So,
So I just want to, I think it's important to institutionalize them so we don't veer from them. Because even in
well,
our.
but there's, no offense, there's no teeth to this. So if I decide
No, it's not- it's
that
teeth
I
in it.
want to stay till 12, nobody can do anything.
Yeah, we can,
Is someone going to censure me?
Now, I'll look at 3F.
the three of us signed it in agreement that this is how we expect to run our meetings, that's all.
I look at 3F, agenda will be followed, dun-da-dun-da-da. It's clear that if you want to take anything out of order, there must be a motion, a second, and a vote. We do that at
But
town
see-
meeting.
But you see, that is not the case, and if you read Cushing's, that doesn't require a vote.
That's why I'm referring to Roberts. And
I know.
I'm also melding into all of this. I've said this before. I'm not an expert on rules of order. However, I do consider the town moderator to be an expert, and I try to learn from him.
Sure.
And I watch what he does, and I know that if you want to take something out of order, because I've done it, and I'll say, Mr. Moderator, can I take this out of order? And he'll say, do you have a motion? And I also know that when he questions something, he goes to town council, so I'm comfortable with what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I really don't see a need for this.
But for example, I think when we want to take I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, we want to take an item out of order on our agenda, I don't think we need to have a motion and a second and a vote. I think that should be the discretion of the chairman if everybody, you
Oh,
know.
that's why I did it tonight.
I know you did, I know, but I'm just,
Because that's what you're supposed to do.
well, not
A
necessarily.
comment from the public.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Why don't you switch to Roberts and get it over with? Try
But-
finding a copy of Cushing's anywhere. I've looked for it.
Well, I got
I
one in my
bought
office.
two for the town. I got one for myself,
Where'd you find it?
Amazon.com.
Yeah, I bought one too.
And the town moderator, you ever see his copy he has? A little plastic
No,
bag?
yeah.
It looks like
The
you can
one-
see it, you want white gloves on it?
The one for the town that I got is from 1890.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a relic. I had one question.
Generally used throughout the commons.
yeah. I think we need to address these, but,
There's
but,
like 3 communities in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, right.
still. Cushing's?
but I think whether it's,
We like
What-
our uniqueness.
they're very, Roberts and Cushing's are very similar, so there's not much difference whether we do Robert.
Why don't you switch to Roberts and get it over with and call it a day? Everybody
But
does Roberts. I've studied.
I would still propose this even if we use Roberts.
Yes.
But anyways, go ahead, Mr. Gold.
All I wanted to ask, thank you, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Cushing's, I understand people say it's outdated. Regardless of which one we use, the reason why I'm not gonna vote for the rules of order tonight is simply because we are gonna use one or the other. So it already exists. I do have one question though. Where did 5 come from? Number 5, if an activity of normal occurrence dictates that approval of an item is required before the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen, the chairman will be authorized to issue an executive order of approval. The nature and rationale for such approval shall be immediately communicated to the other members of the board and will be included on the agenda for the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. The reason why I'm against this is it seems like it's almost like binding the other 2 selectmen's hands to whatever the chairman, and I'm not even speaking about you, Mr., just in general, whatever the chairman has decreed would be
So-
best. And I feel like that's more of a mayoral system than a board of
I
selectmen.
can see how you got that from this language, perhaps it's not strong enough. There are rules, statutory
Exactly,
rules,
right.
that bind what the chairman can actually do legally. So we can't just go, or she, excuse me,
Right.
can't just go and say, by executive order, we are changing all the doors in town hall. You know, you can't do that. That has to be a vote of the
But
board.
if-
But things like, the Girl Scouts want to have cookie sales in the parking lot, and oh, by the way, it's this weekend, but it's Thursday when they're asking. The chairman, that's a non-consequential, I would assume, a non-consequential event, and they can allow, you know, in consultation with the other two members, hey, are you okay if we tell the Girl Scouts that they're all right, you know, to sell their, have a cookie drop-off drive-through or whatever it is, this weekend? And I'm assuming you'd be like, yeah, that's fine, it's for a nonprofit, it's for a good
My-
cause.
Like the one we did last week where they needed something signed.
Oh,
Oh,
for
the
Mass
Memorial
DOT
Day
Memorial
parade.
Day Parade.
And, you know, and it didn't allow us to have, to go to the next meeting and get
Mhm.
approval. I mean, I think the chair would, you know, have enough common sense to know, number one, statutorily what he can or cannot do, or she can or cannot do. And secondly, I just think sometimes that
Mhm.
happens. you
But
know.
here's the thing, is neither Selectman Goulart or I had a problem with you signing that, and 5 didn't exist at the time. So if statutory rules already exist, why do we need to make another rule